I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You call the roll, please.
Director Radford.
Here.
Director Davidson.
Here.
Director Thomas.
I'm here.
Director Cicada.
Here.
President Underhill.
Here. Okay, item number 2, public comment. And we do have public, and I'm asking for any comments that anyone might offer. Nothing
Is there any
from...
public online?
Yes. But nobody else.
Yes.
Okay, item 3, the consent agenda. 3A, approval of minutes for the board meeting of October 14th. 3B, approval of cancellation of board meetings of November 25th and December 23rd. 3C, review of the fiscal year 2021 first quarter investment report.
Move for acceptance. Second.
Public comment. Okay, call the roll.
Okay. Director Radford.
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes.
Director Cicada.
Yes.
President Underhill.
Yes. Okay,
And President Underhill, a quick request on the agenda. I believe we have some consultants on the line for item 4C.
right.
So I was going to ask if we could move that one to ahead of 4A in respect to their time.
Okay. New business. Okay, we have 4A on the PG&E settlement reserve, 4B, review of annual results from the creation of a district purchasing agent, and 4C, discussion regarding the district 5-year strategic plan process. And if we can move 4C ahead. Michael Minkler and John Woodling, GEI consultants concerning the 5-year strategic plan process.
Yeah, so I'll kick this off. I think do we have John online? So we've been talking about this for quite some time now. The board actually authorized a budget line item for a strategic plan in the previous fiscal year, which for various reasons didn't get done, and authorized it again for this fiscal year. We went through a consultant selection process along with a couple of the board members that participated in reviewing proposals and selecting a consultant. We selected GEI as the consultant to help us through this process. And John Woodling is on the line, who's the project lead from GEI, who'll be working us through the process. And he's going to give a presentation today with an overview of the process. This is not a strategic planning workshop in the sense that we're not expecting to dig into the actual process of developing the plan, but more of an overview of what the process will be and the schedule. And also we wanted to introduce you to John and his team. So with that brief introduction, I think, John, I'll probably just turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Michael. And Rebecca, are you going to run the PowerPoint presentation?
I will, yes.
Okay. Yeah, while Rebecca's getting that up, I would just want to say good afternoon to all of you, President Underhill, members of the board of directors, and staff over there. We're really excited, and we appreciate being called to support Calaveras County Water District in developing your strategic plan to guide you forward over the coming years. I will be giving a brief overview of the process and a little preview of what to expect as we go forward over the coming months. I'll just keep plowing along until we get the slides up. But I'll introduce the rest of the project team. Here we go. The consultant project team there consists of three of us. We have Ellen and Maria also here today. Ellen Cross is the owner and principal of her own firm, Strategy Driver, and in that capacity, she's helped a number of public agencies as well as other private entities and NGO organizations do strategic planning over a number of years. She's worked a lot in the Bay Area, a lot in the Sacramento region, and notably, she facilitated the Association of California Water Agencies annual strategic planning process at least 2 or 3 times. I know that I was involved. Ellen will be the lead facilitator on the project, so you'll be hearing a lot from Ellen as we move forward. She'll be leading you in workshops that we have planned, and I'll tell you more about that. I'll let Ellen briefly introduce herself, and then we'll introduce Maria.
Thank you, John. Well, thank you for inviting us to help facilitate your strategic plan. This is one of the great privileges I've had in the last 30 years of doing for both private and public industry. On the public side, mostly water, science, wastewater, sea level rise, anything to do with water and planning. So it's a real privilege because, again, this is a unifying document where board and staff get to come together to navigate the next 5 years and what their top priorities are. So we look forward to working with all of you. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, Ellen. And then Maria Pascal from GI leads GI Strategic Communications Initiative, and in that role provides a lot of support internally with strategies, but also to our clients' needs. And Maria will be assisting Ellen in the workshops, and Maria will be the primary author of what becomes your published strategic plan, both the design of that graphically as well as a lot of the writing. So Maria, you want to introduce yourself quickly, make any comments?
Sure, thanks, John. Yes, I'm Maria Tospel. I've been with GEI for 15 years. I am an outreach specialist, but I also do technical writing and graphic design. And I'm looking forward to working on the plan. I'm originally from San Andres. I grew up and graduated from Cal Oaks High School. So I'm looking forward to this project and spending some time in my old stomping ground. Thanks.
Thanks, Maria. And then finally, I'm John Woodling. I'm the Vice President of GI, and I'll serve as the project manager. And really fundamentally, my role is to ensure that your needs are met, to ensure that we provide high-quality service in a cost-effective manner. I've spent about 35 years in the water resources field, most of it at state, federal, and local agency level, so I have a lot of background in organizational and program development. I've also notably had the good fortune to work with each of your last 3 general managers on a number of statewide issues. So, I have a little bit of insight at least into Calaveras County Water District. So next, we can go to the 4th slide. So that's the extent to which we really want to talk about ourselves in this process, because what's really important to this project team is all of you. The board of directors, management staff we're going to be working with closely, and they're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, rank and file staff. And then as we move into the workshops, and those are publicly noticed meetings of the board of directors, some of your external stakeholders, and even customers will be engaged to the extent they want to be involved as this moves forward in a public process. Next slide. So briefly, I'll walk you through the work plan for the strategic planning project. And we have a survey that we worked on with the management team. That's teed up, ready to roll out on Monday. And we'll be looking for responses over the next couple of weeks. And that'll go to the board members as well as all the staff of the district. And the purpose of the survey we find is really an opportunity to get a lot of input of everything that's out there from all levels and functions of the organization. So we can start to work on what to prioritize, what to focus on in the workshops. We'll follow the survey with interviews and do one-on-one interviews with the 5 members of the board of directors, and then some of the other key people in the organization, but also things we see from the survey that we want to follow up on. We'll choose those additional interviews.
John, sorry to interrupt. We have a question from one of the board members here.
Can we get an example
Sure.
of what the questions might be? He says it's ready to roll out.
Yeah, I can send you a draft,
Okay.
the latest draft, or I guess I'll wait till we just sent some changes yesterday, and once we see a
Can you just give me an
proposed
idea of
draft.
a couple of the questions that they would ask? What type of things are we looking for?
Sure, so John, I don't know if you heard the question, but the question was some examples or an idea of what the survey is asking.
Yeah, well, again, the survey really gets to a lot of the same things we're going to talk about as we go into the workshop. So first of all, assessing the current mission statement of the district and getting input from people. Is that still correct? Is that still how you want to frame the mission? Or do you want to highlight different things in the mission statement? So getting feedback there. Asking about thoughts on what should drive a vision statement. Currently, the district doesn't have a vision statement of what the future looks like for the district, what you want to be in the future, how you want to engage in the world that you may see in the future, both locally in the water industry. We've got some questions about core values. What are those things that drive who you are as a district and the way you operate? And then we get down to really each of the functional areas of the district: water, wastewater, administrative functions, water planning and water rights, and really drill that into getting feedback from the board and staff on what the priority issues are. What are the opportunities, what are the threats, and what are the highest priorities? So we're really doing the first collection of information, and we'll put that, if you will, into a funnel, and then funnel that down to develop content for the workshops and have those be productive.
Excuse me, I want a clarification. You will be conducting this survey with the board and our staff
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, the intent is to have the survey. It'll be an online survey in SurveyMonkey. We conceived it in a way that I think the questions are relevant to anybody at any level in the organization. They may not provide input in all areas that they're not familiar with. And I know management staff wanted to provide the opportunity for that to be answered anonymously as well by some of the staff. So that's our current intent.
Can I make one more comment? Would there be any questions asked along the lines of, like, let's say it's to a staff, how could CCWD improve? You know, something like that. Is there those? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for too.
Yeah, I think that's behind a lot of the questions. It's several pages. There's a lot of,
Okay.
we're trying to get a lot of information. This is not something we do very often, so we want to try to get as much
Yeah.
quality feedback as we can. So I think that gets to a lot of the questions in there.
Okay, cool.
And there's some opportunities in there too to provide other feedback. If a question doesn't specifically address something that somebody wants to provide feedback, they'll have an opportunity in there to raise issues that weren't brought up specifically in the survey.
Well, you know, perhaps when you start doing these workshops, if needed, you could always do another survey before each workshop or something to get specific questions answered on that particular section in the workshop.
Yeah, and also just a reminder, John mentioned this briefly too, but the board will each be interviewed as well. Individual members of the board will be interviewed by the consultant team in addition to the survey.
And what kind of time frame are we talking about?
I think that's coming up in the presentation here.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I'll continue. I think it's a good idea, and I appreciate that the district wants to survey all the employees, because I think, it's certainly the board is the drivers of policy. They're the ones that are elected by the public to manage the water system in trust for the public. The people on the ground out there know different things. I mean, they interact with customers directly as well. They know how the system operates. They know what the challenges are. They know what the opportunities are. So I think not only do we get input from the full range of understanding in the district, I think we also need to start getting the buy-in and the alignment of all levels of the district, from the newest and most junior level employees up to the board of directors. So following 3 workshops, and I'll talk a little bit about those in the next slide, we will, the consultant team and management staff will go back and develop a draft of a strategic plan. So a written document that captures all the input from those workshops, to seek comment and review from both staff and the board, and then ultimately adoption of the content by the board, and then we'll finalize that into a published document. So the content of the strategic plan really ranges from high-level things like mission statement, vision statement, and your core values. And I characterize those as what you are as a district, what you want to be as a district, how you want to operate. But then we get down also into goals and objectives, which get more down into what do you want to do and how are you going to achieve it. And we'll use the workshop to kind of walk serially from the high level down to the lower level. What the strategic plan doesn't include, but what it should drive in the future, is annual implementation plans. How are you going to accomplish the objectives under each of these goals annually? Should drive the annual budgeting process. You identify your priorities and intended outcomes in the strategic plan, and hopefully that drives the budgeting. And then it probably will also drive some policy changes at the district moving forward. So as far as schedule, on the next slide, as I said, we're at October 28th today to both go around process, but also answer any questions and seek input from the board on the process going forward. The survey will go up Monday, and we'll be looking for responses over the subsequent 2 weeks. And then we'll follow up with interviews by the end of the calendar year, with workshops tentatively scheduled in January, February, and March. And we've got 3 dates that are outlined for Fridays in those months. And then come back, draft the strategic plan in April, hopefully get that to the board for adoption by the end of April, and then do the final publication of the plan in May of 2021. If I could have the next slide. I just want to, this may be tough for you to see, but the workshops really are going to be preceded by a lot of heavy lifting with us working with the management staff to digest the information that we've received so far, whether it's the survey or the prior workshop, in the case of the second and third workshops, and really teeing up the content and the agenda for the workshops, so we clearly understand the outcomes we want from the workshop, and we can achieve those and be efficient and effective and staying on our schedule and getting to the strategic plan adoption about roughly mid next calendar year. So that's all I have to present. I do want to respond to any questions, but also I think get feedback from the board on any thoughts, concerns, ideas they have as we move forward.
I have a question. At any point during the rest of this year, will the board be involved in anything? Because I don't see our blue dot.
Interviews?
Survey and interviews.
Survey and interviews.
Right, no, but as far as, any of the other workshops or what have you?
Yeah, the intent is that the workshops are board, noticed public meetings of the board. And the workshops, I think actions would ultimately adopt the the plan will take place at a regular meeting. But those 3 workshops, we're now conceiving those as 3-hour sessions with the board, with management staff, with potentially other staff, but also the public, to the extent they're public meetings. So that will really be the heavy lifting.
You
when
did say,
the board weighs in on what's going into the strategic plan, sets priorities, and really refines the content. Staff will do the work to get things teed up so the board time can be effective, but ultimately it'll be the board of directors that drives the 3 workshops.
you did say 3-hour sessions.
John, just so you know, our board members are not paid by the hour. I don't know if we
We're
shared that
looking
with
for
you.
a shorter process, maybe a rebate.
No, but I think they also recognize the importance of this. And I do recall one question that we had for the board, and I don't mean to jump ahead, was the timing of those sessions, because I do think they should be long and interactive meetings. And so we had internally, staff and John's team talked about, not doing that as a part of a regular board meeting where there's other board business going on. And so we kind of threw out maybe scheduling those for Fridays. The question for us was whether we schedule that for Friday afternoons or Friday mornings, or does the board have another day that you would like us to shoot for? We wanted to get some feedback from the board on that point.
I'd say one Friday up at Murphy's Hotel, one Friday at La Cantina.
Sounds good.
I'm good with Friday mornings. I could make that work around my schedule.
Friday mornings?
That would be my choice.
And these would be separate from any board meeting and other agenda
Yeah, these will be
items.
special meetings, likely
Okay.
the only thing on the agenda.
I think Friday mornings would be better.
Friday morning would work for me.
Okay, Friday mornings it is.
Russ?
Yes,
6 a.m.?
fine.
I'm good.
I'm ready at 5:30.
Why that late?
Well, would they be virtual meetings?
That's a good question. I think, John, we'll probably have to evaluate, who knows where we'll be as far as COVID goes. I think ideally, these meetings are in person with, the proper precautions in place, but
Better for these kinds of things, but we have to be responsive to what's going on with public health. I was going to say, the good news is, if we do our jobs in the strategic plan, it'll make your future board meetings go much quicker and more smoothly, because everybody will be aligned around priorities. And Michael's job will be easier, the board's job will be easier.
is that a guarantee?
If you say so.
Okay, that sounds good. And so I think the goal will be to try to do these with everybody here, in the boardroom. But again, we'll just have to see how circumstances change over that time.
Okay, Friday morning.
Any other questions from the board? Public?
Oh, well, I think, John, was that, did you have more to go in your presentation?
Sorry, Michael, I couldn't hear you.
Did you have anything else you wanted to address as part of your presentation?
No, I think, as I said, we're excited to get started. We've been talking with you about this for a while. I think this year has been a challenge, but I think these are the kinds of things that happen, and I think that both the planning process and the plan in place will help guide the district, whatever the future may bring.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, we thank you, John.
Well, what about any public comments? You
I
might have
asked for
questions for
public
him.
comment. Yeah, okay,
Well,
certainly.
when we talked earlier, I was talking about my comments on the 5-year capital improvement plan. I guess we got confused when you were talking about the 5-year management plan, whatever you talked
Strategic.
about. So I should have spoke at the beginning.
No.
This
Well,
is
can we go
regarding
back?
Capital improvement.
No, it isn't.
So this is, this agenda item is the strategic plan.
Right.
So if there's no comments on that, then we can just say thank you to John and your team. We appreciate the time, and we'll be in touch.
And then we
if,
could-
All right,
if
we'll be talking to all of you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And then I think the request is for a public comment on a non-agendized item, so that's up to the board to open that up or not.
I would like to open that up.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's confusion.
okay, certainly.
Okay, sorry.
And address
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Ralph Copeland, and I'm in Copperopolis. Brief background, I spent 35 years as a project manager for supplying pipeline material for wastewater treatment plants and transmission mains. First, I'd like to thank the district for their professional service throughout this pandemic. You've kept our infrastructure safe and secure, and I really appreciate that. You and your crew, everyone out in the field, doing a wonderful job. I'm here regarding the 5-year capital improvement. My concern is the C1 tank and Saddle Creek transmission main projects listed in your review of the recently approved Saddle Creek development plan. This tank and transmission project, as mentioned in your report, will relieve certain issues with reliability of water deliveries to Saddle Creek long-term in order to improve service to future connections. I believe the $9 million should first be used for retrofitting and upgrading the existing Copperopolis water system laid out in your 5-year capital improvement plan. Speaking with Mike Fletcher of CV Development, he said the build-out of the Saddle Creek plan of 800 homes will occur in 10 to 12 years. Please recall the county uproar which accompanied your last increase. The district needs to improve the county's existing services. I'm not saying this transmission line shouldn't be built, it should, but it should not be the #1 priority of this district. Also, I have my concerns in regards to the funding of the C1 tank and Saddle Creek transmission main. Does CV Development have a financial obligation to this project? I also asked the same question with the estimated $12 million required to retrofit and expand the Copper Cove wastewater treatment plant. I understand you are working hard on grants for the treatment plant project, but again, I must ask how much of this falls on the shoulders of your customers, and does CV Development have a financial obligation to the district? Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, do you think we could agendize the CIP projects that he's talking about, just to refresh our memory with, or you can give it to me offline?
Yeah, or we could
'Cause I don't really
have that
remember.
discussion at the engineering committee. Might be more appropriate there if the
maybe.
engineering committee would like to discuss the item more.
And whether or
I'll
not
take
they
that
would
from you.
care to agendize it
Have-
on a regular
Just
basis.
We
real
could
quick.
also follow up with you at the staff level. I'd be happy to.
Just real quick, it seems like a very simple staff answer to both, to
Yeah,
all those inquiries. You know, I mean, there's capital improvement, there's development. Clearly, developers have to pay their proportion. It seems to me that you can explain this very easily. And then if he needs more comments, then we could talk about it at the engineering committee.
Absolutely,
It
yeah.
seems to me a very simple questions to answer.
Yep, so we can't discuss it, it's off agenda, so we can't discuss it today, but we'll follow up with you and be happy to work through some of that stuff with you. And then if we want to bring it back to the board or to the engineering committee, we can do that as well, so. We can work with you at the staff level first, and then if there's something that we feel we need to bring to the engineering committee or back to the board, we can do that.
Okay, so to contact you or?
Yeah, we'll make sure you have our contact information and we'll follow up with you.
Okay, very good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph.
Sure, Russ, thank you.
Okay, item 4A, discussion action regarding the PG&E settlement reserve.
Okay, so if you recall, earlier this fiscal year, we received the PG&E settlement funds, just a little over $2.4 million. It was not anticipated, we didn't budget for it, and so we did discuss in terms of the fact that we have received that we were going to bring that discussion with regards to what to do with that. and our recommendation was to put it in reserves. So we took this proposal to the Finance Committee on October 20th and had that conversation. And eventually, we'd like to bring a full-fledged change and rewrite of our reserve policy, but for the time being, we felt that this was important to address immediately. Just the mechanics of it, I'll speak to it, and then Brad Arnold, our water resource manager, can speak to the kind of body of, you know, what the water resources for licensing points will be. But with that 2.4 million, we received the funds in. They're basically sitting in an operating fund, so this is really to transfer those monies out into a reserve. The current reserve that we have is in our interest reserve fund, and it's named Water Rights Reserve. And it's been that way since 2008. And we felt that it's not necessarily really just water rights anymore. And so it was a good time to actually address the naming convention of that and really change the name also to Water Resources and for relicensing reserve. So this action would move the $2.4 million to that reserve and then take $100,000 of that to come into the operating budget of Water Resources in order to fund some professional services for the remainder of the year. That is my information, so I'll have Brad come up here and speak to the rest of it.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca, and good afternoon, directors. What we're really talking about here is a $3 million water rights reserve that was available to the district made in 2008 to protect, defend, and deal with state requirements related to our water rights, which are important to all of our service areas, whether they be on the Stanislaus, Calaveras, or other watersheds within Calaveras County and surrounding areas. What we're talking about here is now broadening the fund to include FERC licensing, which is important to two major projects that CCWD owns. That is the North Fork Stanislaus Hydroelectric Project, mainly the Coyerville plant facilities powerhouse on the Stanislaus River, as well as the New Hogan project, which is actually on New Hogan Reservoir down in the northwestern Calaveras County. Both of these projects have FERC licenses, which are required to operate the hydroelectric facilities, and both of them are set to expire in 2032. Now, even though that's 12 years away, there's a lot of review, environmental analysis, work that needs to be done by the district in order to procure those licenses, those relicenses rather, and then also to perform analysis to understand what does that mean for us economically. How do we move forward in owning these projects? Do we intend to move forward with the Northern California Power Agency on the North Fork Stanislaus project, as we have been doing? They've been operating the project even though we own it. And similarly, do we want to repartner with Modesto Irrigation District on the New Hogan facilities, as we have been doing in the past? So a lot of work needs to go into putting together the analysis and research work, as well as procuring the licenses themselves, which is expected to be a very expensive effort over the next 12 years. This fund would go put together the seed funding, if you will, even though it's a lot, just to really get ready for those larger efforts, as well as continuing to protect and work on our water rights licensing, defense if needed, and things that way. The $100,000 that Rebecca mentioned would immediately go towards operating and water resources, so we can start that analysis. Sort of the first pass to understanding the FERC license process is, what does that path look like? What does the timeline look like? Can we perform economic analysis, sort of forecast into the future to understand what our role should be in those two projects and how we can move forward with relicensing? And then $100,000 will help us start to perform that analysis. So with that's really what this pot of funding would do, is to continue to support water rights as well as FERC relicensing. But as mentioned in the agenda item here, the board, in conjunction with Gina Manker, will need to determine how to continue funding that reserve to get ready for what is expected to be a very expensive relicensing process. So with that, we can answer any questions, but I believe that's the overview of what we're thinking.
See if I can say this one. Part of that $100,000, are we anticipating hiring a consultant? And that's where those fees would probably go towards?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah, and I think just to touch on that last point Brad made, expand on that a little bit, because what we know and what the board is well aware of, having these discussions for a long time now, is you know, we're going to need more than that, than what we're establishing today. So it's going to be a challenge over the next several months, and as we go into the budget prep process, to identify the source of revenue that will continue to, you know, that will continue to add to this fund. We have a lot of budget pressure as it is, and so setting aside revenue for this is going to be very difficult. There's going to be trade-offs involved, but that's something that we know, just based on the time pressure that we have now. That's something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to start making those trade-offs. So that'll be something we'll be bringing back to the board in the coming months.
So you're already looking at this, looking ahead at the budget for next year?
We haven't really started budget prep in earnest. I mean, to a certain degree, it's kind of we're always looking at the budget and thinking about the future. And so there's still a lot more work that has to be done, but that's one aspect of it that we don't have that really identified and nailed down yet to bring to the board today, but it's a piece that we know needs to come
It'll have to be
later.
done, right.
Yeah.
Comments, questions?
I'll make a motion if we're ready.
I'll second.
Okay.
What's the motion?
The motion is to adopt the resolution authorizing renaming of Fund 108 Water Rights Expense Account to Water Resources and FERC relicensing, and transfer in funds originating from the PG&E Settlement Reserve.
And I'll second that resolution.
Do I have public comment? No other board comments? Okay, seeing none?
Well, I got a comment before you take
Okay.
roll. No, I'm just proud that we're doing this and setting this money aside and taking it. It's 12 years away, but that's me. Still may not be enough time to do everything that we need to, and we're still going to be rushed. And this is a long, arduous
If we get
process.
$2.4 million a year, we might be able to actually.
We might. But
Come on, you gotta be
PG&E
optimistic
isn't
here,
going to be
man.
that generous. I don't think every
I
single
believe
year.
Matt's on the line, so that's your job, Matt.
That's all I got.
Understood, I'll get on it.
Okay,
Okay, Director Adamant?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Sigmeda?
Yes.
President Earnhardt?
yes. Thank you. Thank
you,
you very
Brad.
much.
You know,
Item-
yeah.
Item 4B, review of the annual result from the creation of a district purchasing agent position. Mr. Damon.
Good afternoon. So, the district has had a purchasing agent position in play for about a year now.
All right, guys, I'll keep looking at me.
Capacity in October of 2019. And the intention of the position was really to ensure that the district could work to obtain the best price for items, ensure the district was purchasing the best equipment for the job, and ensure that there was accountability associated with purchasing, amongst other things. And I feel like you're gonna find through this presentation and through the details contained in the staff report that the district is working and moving towards that end, and there was some real tangible savings associated with the purchasing of the position throughout this past year. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Mike. Here we go. I think Rebecca will be kind enough to manage the slides for you.
Okay, so I guess go ahead on the first one. So the first thing that we need to do is, what we're trying to do is just make Michael and David give me an opportunity to come in the year and give me this spot and just let me with this. And I appreciate them giving me an opportunity. The first thing that we wanted to do, that I encountered is coming in before we had a purchasing agent, we had a bunch of purchasers. Everybody just, when they wanted to buy something, they felt they needed something, they just bought it. They didn't ask, they just, okay, we're gonna go ahead and buy it. I get this all the time still, hey man, I need this. It's like there was a sense of urgency for everything that we had, and it's, they felt they needed it, they bought it, and they bought it from people that they knew, relationship based, like, somebody would stop in, salesman would stop in, and they knew that salesman, they'd say, okay, Gary, I need you to get this for me. There was no 3 quotes, any kind of competitive pricing whatsoever. They just said, okay, I'm gonna call Gary, I'm gonna get all this, and you would have, invoices that would be up to $20,000 in parts and supplies. Nobody would get any kind of quotes or of any kind. They would say, I need this, and we buy it. So the first thing that I wanted to do is come in and say, okay, now you vendors are going to compete for our business right off the bat. They're going to give me what we need. I'm going to go to 3 vendors, and I'm going to say, okay, here's what we have, and I need you to get me quotes on all of this. They send me back the quotes, and right now I'll go through every line item. And I'll say, okay, this is cheaper, this is cheaper, this is cheaper, and I'll go through that and make a judgment on who we pick or what parts that we buy. So one thing that we also have to do is with the purchasing policy, we have to have bids. We have to have quotes for over 10,000, or we have to have quotes more verbal quotes for up to 5,000. So now I'm making sure that we do have quotes. Where before, no quotes were given. You just call them up, say, hey, I need this. And then on optimizing the shipping and receiving efforts, I handle those responsibilities. They'll send me a list of what they need. I make sure that I go through that. If it needs to be, if something's wrong, I handle it. I do all the shipping and returns. These guys focus on just work. I focus on getting the materials there. When you got like 2 guys in Copperopolis, 2 guys, it gives, I have the time to go out and check this up. These guys focus on maintenance. Okay, so I think I kind of went over how we obtain competitive pricing, but just letting people know that we are competing. They are competing for our business. What I do now is someone will call me and say, hey, I need this. I need these certain parts. So what I do is, first thing I do is look throughout the district to see if we have it. If we have it,
I'm just curious, how do you know what we have?
because I will either call, I've actually started, you'll see, I've actually started an inventory thing that's gonna be it's in our mobile management system. So you're gonna be able to access it by computer. It's just, it's a slow burn, like I have.
No, I mean, ultimately that's a goal, but we've got stuff laying in every yard,
Yeah,
you know.
so,
You're doing an inventory.
I've actually, yeah, I've done some inventory, Copper, West Point, La Cantina, but I'm getting it into this mobile management system to where everybody can see it. So let's say somebody in Copper needed a part, he can look in La Cantina and say, oh, it shows you have 10, because like we had, at one point, we had 22 6-inch high max couplings to make mainline repairs in La Cantina, which would take forever to go through. You'd have to have a lot of mainline repairs. We don't get a lot of mainline repairs in Rancho Calaveras. We get a lot of service line repairs. So if he needed one, I was able to get on there and look at it and say, hey, we got 22 of those there. There's no reason for us to buy 6. For Copper, I can grab 6 in La Cantina. I can take them over to you so we can utilize the inventory that we have.
Yeah, just as kind of an added thing, I mean, I haven't been out to one of the plants in a long time, but I can recall being out at the La Cantina plant, and we got quite a little boneyard we used to have out there. And it would also be is just to kind of go through that material and find out what's functional and what needs to be, scrapped and get out of it. It'd be much easier to inventory everything if we started making decisions as to usefulness and not. Just add that to your list.
That's a great point, and I think
That's something that we have done, and if you go back out to La Cantina recently, like, we cleaned it up. It's actually clean. We took a lot of parts out that we could use. We took parts out that are no longer usable and scrapped those parts, and it's cleaned up. It's
great.
way better. And then I've actually inventoried La Cantina.
Oh,
so
great.
it's actually, you'll see a slide of it. I actually have.
That was a good place to start.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I have a follow-up up the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully we'll get to, And then next year, we'll get to every place, we'll get them all on the mobile management system.
Great.
And then so when these guys need a part, they don't even have to call, they can get on there, or we're gonna have the warehouse down here. It'll all be inventory. They can get on the computer, they can see what we have, and we can use it.
Okay,
I
great.
think the first year or two of your job, this position is gonna be organizing and getting all the info in one place. So
Yes.
based on what I read, you have a lot of chores already.
So that's
A
part
lot of
of
hats.
And that's part of the light purchases, like, I will, if I do make an order, and I kind of went over this, I will call everyone and say, hey, I'm making an order, what do you need? They'll tell me they'll send me a message of what they need, I put everything together in a nice package, I send it off to 3-4 vendors, they come back to me with their quotes, and like I said, I'll go through line item by line item, it's okay, we're cheaper on this, we're cheaper on this. I've actually called and said, okay, you got almost this whole quote, but you're way expensive on 3 or 4 items, can you come down and meet that? I've actually said, hey, can you work with me on this? You get the whole quote if you can actually beat this price. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. And I actually have split these and said, okay, I'm gonna get these parts from this vendor, I'm gonna get the rest of these parts from this vendor, we're gonna save money in that area.
I think another place you're gonna save money is because you're in direct contact, and so any new improvement or updated equipment or material, you'll be able to put your fingers on right away.
Yeah, that's something that we kind of do, that I kind of do right now. Is I've got my hands on all the inventory, and I'm working with everybody together as a team, where before, copper was separate, Kevin's Pass was separate, Lock and Ten was separate, they ordered their own parts. Nobody worked together, and a lot of times, just the effort of getting parts from one place to the other is such a task, because we're so spread out. Now we have a way to utilize all that inventory together.
Have you thought of annual bids?
Yes, that's, I'm gonna look for possibly a preferred vendor,
Right.
and we can probably save sometime.
And that way they hold on to the inventory, and you just buy the coupling at the same
Yeah.
price for the whole year.
Yeah, they lock even per price, that's something,
Bertha, they can open up the public comment after we have the presentation.
but to answer your question, yes, that's on the agenda also. And so, I guess what I've already kind of went over is the fact that, they had to coordinate all these duties themselves. So instead of working in the field, instead of doing maintenance, they took hours a day, and I actually worked with these guys in the field. Sometimes they would come to me when I actually worked in the field with them, hey, can you give me this, can you give me this? Hey, you know this spot, because I kind of came from this field. So we spent hours, trying to put this together, what do we need for projects? And then when this stuff came in, you had to check it in, you had to break it down, you had to make sure it was right. If it wasn't right, you had to return stuff. I'm doing that. So now you got 2 guys in copper, their focus is maintenance. My focus is on getting material, supplies and materials, getting on shelf, getting the inventory. If it's wrong, shipping it back. Those hours are going on me. I brought this up about the ease of, you build relationships with a vendor, and all our guys in the field had their vendor that they liked. So they would call and say, hey, give me parts. There was no competitive, I can show you invoices from Ferguson from 2018 that are, where we're paying, like Rancho Calaveras does a lot of service line leaks. They do a lot of 1x3 service repair line plants, where they were charging us $34 for one of those plants. We're paying $20 now, because I went to Ferguson and said, okay, you're competing for this now. So before, he just, he got his commission, and he wrote it up and made it settle. So that's what we did, is I made sure that everyone knows that they're competing for our business now.
Just out of curiosity on the process, if, how far in advance are you, I understand, particularly now material, plumbing supplies, HVAC, all that stuff is extremely hard to get. It just doesn't exist. They don't have it in inventory. Are you working with the field crews to have them understand that we have to schedule the material far in advance of completing the job? We can't just order certain things. Maybe you aren't having that trouble, but everybody I know is having that problem.
that's the challenge, and a lot of it comes down when they say that I need it, I'm planning for the next one on my part. So it's like, and we haven't had an opportunity to look at like trends yet, which we're going to do, you know, to really get in depth like with data, but I kind of look at it and say, okay, you're ordering 100. I know that you're gonna need 300 of these this year. So I'm looking ahead and going, okay, let's order 100.
Even like electrical components is another thing that's extremely hard to get, just a lot of lead time for it.
That's another thing we did with like SCADA equipment, floats and stuff, where they would usually do 2 orders a year. Where I went and did, or they do 3 orders a year. A lot of times they do it right at the end of the year. And where our budget is kind of slim, you know, right there at the end of the fiscal. Where I'm like, okay, let's get one big order. And I actually talked to the vendor and said, hey, work with me on this. I'm getting, you know, instead of getting 40, I'm getting 80. Can you work with me on price? And they went down 5-10% on price just by me saying, hey, I'm gonna buy more of these.
A lot of what Mike and I have conversations about when it comes to purchases also is, okay, this pump failed, the direct replacement is 10 weeks out. If we look at, you know, we can buy the pump itself from this vendor, we can buy the motor from this vendor, and we can build it. That would make it 4 weeks out. Let's sit down and talk to the operations staff and get an idea of what works best for them, because this is a little bit out of the box, and we want to make sure their comfort level is such that they actually buy in. And so we do a lot of that, and so there's one particular item too in the list of the effective savings over the year, really towards water meters, because that was the very conversation about water meters. Say we have a plan to put in, and we have a requirement to put in X amount of water meters this year. These vendors are this far out. And as I was searching for a better opportunity with other vendors, lo and behold, I was able to achieve a better price also. And so timing is a critical component of everything Mike's doing right now.
Okay, guys. This is one part where we were talking about changing the culture here. This was in the first couple of weeks that I was on the job. It's kind of blurry, but we had a mixer that was in one of our lift stations that the mechanic said we absolutely have to have it. We got to get it right. Then things, pump the brakes there, pump the brakes, because it was actually almost 9,000 for this mixer. Let Mike take a look at it. After researching it, I found it for $3,600. So I've found quite a bit of that as I've come through, where before we had a relationship with this vendor. They did a lot of work for us. We liked them. But, I think they got used to us buying stuff from them.
Yeah.
And so it started out where this thing was $8,900. They talked them down to $7,900. I found it from another vendor for $3,600. I run into this quite a bit. I've also run in the first, as far as we were changing the culture, the first couple months that I was in here, where they actually just went ahead and decided, I'm gonna buy this without asking, without going through me. And I have a picture of it. It's not on here. I actually have it here. But they went ahead and bought it, and it was a $9,000 part. I found it at the vendor for $5,000. But they went ahead and bought it without going through me. And I was kind of like, hey, we're trying to change the culture here. And it was one of those things where like, hey, we needed it, but we had to get it.
Yeah.
And,
Can I make one little comment? And on my notes, it's interesting how this part was $9,000. You need 3 quotes for $10,000 or more. I'm wondering, since you're trying to change this culture, if you should review the policy, and the policy should be changed to 5,000 or whatever, you know, look at maybe changing that, because since you're doing all this, maybe that should be reviewed. And then I'm also wondering, when we look at the check register, you know, that comes through, I see all these payments, you know, with little odds and ends at senders or these local places. Will eventually you could maybe get to those items as well? Okay.
So the overall goal is to really stop a lot of that, the material that we see staff picking up at senders, and a lot of the automotive parts through the enterprise lease program, and then through simply stocking windshield wiper blades, brakes, fluids, whatnot, that we reuse all of that, yeah.
I think we started out with like the big things and we're kind of working our way down the line.
What is the policy right now for, so for instance, buying that $9,000 one? Do they have to ask for your permission first?
So before Rebecca jumps in, I would just like to point out that Mike is always looking for multiple quotes, because he has the first question for me, and then the first question from Rebecca will be, what are the other, who else has it? How much does it cost over here?
I think my question is, the staff, other than yourselves who are managers and this is your job, what are can they just buy anything and say, sorry, I had to with it? Now the policy, everything goes through him.
No, the policy actually says that staff can only purchase if they were approved to purchase, period. And there's still limits on that. So if you are a non-supervising staff in the field, you're limited to $1,000.
Oh, perfect.
And that's not new.
$1,000 per item per day?
How'd
It's been
that,
in the policy the whole time. It's just, I think what I saw, and what Mike saw, and what Damon saw is just a culture of not being aware if there was even a policy. And so a lot of what has had to happen is just kind of trying to herd cats and, changing this culture so that everybody is going through mine in order to make sure that they're adhering to the policy. So
well,
part of
it's
an
easy,
education.
like I've said, to spend other people's money. Now that they have somebody that's kind of keeping an eye on it, but what happened to the person who spent that $9,000 because they needed it? Did a supervisor in the field approve it and that's acceptable? Well, you don't need to tell me what happened to him, but there was some kind of discussion that took place perhaps.
Absolutely. And then to follow up what Rebecca had to say, and so through her revisions of the purchasing policy, we've actually sat down in field operations staff meeting and reviewed the purchasing policy and had field staff sign that they have reviewed it, they understand it, and that moving forward, these are the policies that we have to adhere to.
And these all happened in the first month on the job, and that's when we started having meetings with supervisors, and we started giving them policies that some of these guys didn't even know we had policy.
Okay, that's fine. So, before I ever came on this board, I heard stories that, and if you notice, I will always say, you got more tires for this car, more tires for this car. So I would assume that part of your role would be when we are buying snow tires that could generally last 2 or 3 seasons, you will be the one monitoring where they go and they're in stock.
I get a lot of that, where I look through and go, what are we doing here? I go, and then you gotta explain to me what happened here, what they're doing here. And usually,
It's a culture change, isn't
but it's
it?
still something that I look at and go, okay, why did we do this?
And I think a lot of it is that staff are risk averse, and they're moving from one work effort to another work effort. And so Mike simply calling them up and asking the question or reminding them of the requirement is all that is needed. Because their objective is to solve a problem. And so what we task them with out in the field, independent of making purchases, is to solve problems efficiently, quickly, and safely, right? And so that when they apply that to the purchasing objective, like, okay, this fuel solenoid on this generator just blew up, I need one right now. And instead of, prior to, I think, they would just go find it. And so right now, they have somebody they can discuss with it, they involve myself, they might involve the construction maintenance manager, or the plant ops manager, and we might say, hey, we have a trailer mounted, or we have this solution in place, let's work on getting that unit. It's not all on your shoulders, and I think a part of the culture wasn't so much that we get it because we need it, because we have to have it. It's also, I might feel like I don't have the support structure that I have. And I think collectively, this is now, let's implement this support structure and let them know, hey, you have somebody now. Because one of the changes that we're starting to see is field staff going, man, this is great. Hey, Mike, these are the items I need. I'm not even going to get on the computer. I'm just heading out to the workday. And so this is kind of, as we get through that transition period, this is now what we're starting.
And that's the point, I'm glad you mentioned that, Damon. So the point I wanted to touch on too is when we talk about the way things were done before, I want to make sure we're not, beating up on our field supervisors. It's not that that there was any, incompetence or maliciousness on their part. It was in the heat of the moment, they're doing the best they can to do the job that was in front of them that needed to get done. We weren't providing them with the tools to do it in a more efficient way, and so that's what this effort is about.
Yep.
Mike, I got a question. Rebecca, you mentioned $1,000 for non-supervisor purchasing. Is that per item, per day, per month,
That's
Per purchase.
per item?
Per purchase. And so I think what we found.
You said per item, per what?
Per item,
Okay.
just per item. And I think what we found is, we just haven't done an exceptional job at educating our staff on existing policies. So like a policy would be adopted and then it'd be stuck in a folder and then put on a shelf.
Right.
And, some people know that it exists, but most people probably didn't. And so what we tried to do is make sure that that was all, that we either, in areas where we needed to make it easier for purchasing because there were obstacles and hindrances in it, but also making sure we're educating so that, we can give, Mike the opportunity to pull those responsibilities where they needed to be. And so we still have the availability for people to do purchases because there are times where it just.
You gotta solve a problem and get it fixed right away.
But we've got different levels of purchasing authority even out in the field.
Are you finding, you two finding, and Damon, you two, that staff or employees are coming to you even though they have the authority themselves to do it, just to get your input? Is that happening?
Because
I mean,
the time restraint, I have guys come and say, hey, can you get this, because they're working on maintenance stuff. It's easier for me to do the research, look it up, get the parts coming. And I have a lot of people that are like, I like you. I tell you what I need, and then 2 days later it shows up. I'm still working.
Yeah.
So that's,
Good.
I do get that quite a bit.
And that's kind of one of the overarching, I think, themes of where we're at after this first year is that, folks initially might have been like, oh, my mistake. There's a purchasing agent. Okay, my mistake. And then, hey, reminder, here's the policy. Oh, yeah, okay, I understood. Now I remember there's a purchasing agent, there's a policy, and now it's to the point of, it streamlines the work effort right out of the gate. It's, oh, I got to talk to Mike because this broke last night.
So employees are becoming appreciative of the culture
Yeah.
change and the assist with their job.
Yeah.
Good.
Quite a bit. I'll get that a lot where they're like, hey, I like you. I tell you what to get. 2 days later it shows up. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to think about it. It shows up. It's there. It's the right part. If it's the wrong part, I make sure it goes back. Make sure we get the right one. And then they can focus on maintenance.
So here's the list. I mean, so this is kind of the highlights of Mike's work effort throughout the past year. In terms of really obtaining quotes for material and equipment and some of the savings that he was able to realize through those quotes. So the one I talked about, regarding meters was the March 2020 switching meter vendors. Because at this point in time, it's important to note that AMI, AMR was not necessarily full go yet. And so this was a project that was on the horizon, perhaps within the next few years, and the district was still having to install meters for developer projects and to just simply do the need to replace failed meters throughout the utility. So I think you brought in a couple hundred meters at that point in time, right, Mike? And then you actually brought some in from the higher price vendor, and then we ended up packaging them all back up.
That's huge.
And so another one I think is important to talk about is, is the August 2020, there was savings realized through the purchase of the hydro trailer also. So this was a budgeted capital outlay item to replace the hydro trailer that our collections crew uses to clean the sewer system. And so through negotiations with the vendor, Mike was also able to obtain parts to rehabilitate the hydro trailer that we have currently. So we're able to basically rebuild one, purchase a new one, and then deploy two, whereas before we only used to have one.
I was able to negotiate, for them to fix they fixed the old pump on the old ones, we ended up with 2 trailers inside that project fund.
So I think overall, the theme is that, a daily review and a comprehensive approach to obtaining quotes, to making purchases, to meet the needs of our folks out in the field is seeing some results in.
So I wonder if, with this nice savings, it's set aside to be able to buy the new building over there.
So I think overall, I think the ultimate, as we get to a point where, for lack of a better term, the dust settles, I think you're going to be able to see a realization
So-
of tangible costs moving from X to.
So for instance, we budget X, for these repairs, and you've saved 100,000 out of that budget, then we as a board say, okay, the 100,000 savings should go over to that building purchase or some other type of item to continue this purchasing agent's position and whatnot, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, and I definitely think that we can get there, but I think one thing we need to be mindful of right now is that we have a lot of infrastructure that is old, and that is being held together with duct tape and dam wire, and we'll get there. On one ledger, we'll like, man, we're doing great this year, and then we have 5 pumps to give out. But yes,
You bring up a good point. Are you buying your baling wire and duct tape in quantity? You get
yes,
quantity this time?
absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, we did kind of bring that up about how, like, we got the pump order up there where we had that. Last year, we ran into an instance where it seemed like every week a pump at a lift station was going out. And so I had to go to the collection man and say, I need you to give me a list of every one of these pumps that's 20 years old or older. And I think we had 22 lift stations where these pumps were almost 30 years old. So they're basically taking time bomb.
Yeah.
They're gonna go out, we know they're going to go out, so we put that into a project. But because these systems are aging, some of the savings that we get, we're gonna have to put more toward the infrastructure. Just because it continues to fall apart, until we replace it. Fix this engine instead of put parts to the engine. We're actually going to replace the engine at some point, hopefully. But
BS kind of skewed
Yeah.
last year also too, and that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But,
Well, it all looks really good.
Yeah. How much time are you on the road?
not very much. I mean, I get on the road okay. Sometimes I have to run parts for somebody if we get an emergency. Like I said, we got two people, in a certain area that day, and we got a delivery coming in, or somebody, hey, we're working on a PRP and we're shut down. I need this part. I need it right now. I've done that. I'm here. I'm on the phone quite a bit. Not on the road a whole lot.
So I think part of what we're trying to illustrate in this portion of the PowerPoint now is just kind of the hours that were freed up through my work efforts for other folks, and some of the items that he has been working on. And to your point, Director, President Underhill is, delivering parts and materials to crews when necessary. And that's always a morale boost when you see purchasing and come around the corner with the repair plans that you need.
And as I read through the report, I appreciate that you do stuff that isn't maybe in your title, like disinfecting all those vehicles. That was really awesome, so thank you. Everybody pitches in and does what they can.
Right, yeah. So I think Mike had spent a lot of yarns associated with how he obtained personal protective equipment when it comes to coronavirus. Yeah, he's got a lot of stories of a lot of vendors that he's.
Yeah, because we went through a time where you couldn't get anything. It was almost impossible to get any kind of safety equipment, and I just
Oh, right, I remember that.
scoured the country looking for anything like masks, shields, gloves, sanitizers, and it was kind of, it's kind of a weird world for ordering materials, especially that safety stuff. But I did everything I could to get safety materials for these guys and everybody in the office. And it took up quite a bit of time, but there are some crazy stories to ordering stuff from certain places and it taking weeks and to get here, you know, and you're like, yeah, Prime is no longer Prime delivery anymore, you know, it's a couple weeks. Good stuff.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
then one of the slides too that I think is important to take a look at is the next one, Rebecca, where we just kind of, and this was at the outset of the purchasing agent's position where we looked at, you know, time saved for field supervisors for major purchases. Yeah, and that's pretty compelling information there. And this is just anecdotal, but at the same time it's important because, you know, folks spent a lot of time historically here. Usually, first thing in the morning, when they get to the yard, talking to vendors, responding to failures that might have occurred the night before or over the weekend, looking to secure a pump, looking to secure a motor or pipe or repair clamps or whatnot. So Mike's taken most of that work on himself. There's still obviously points in time where folks, and we encourage, you know, during an emergency, if you have to make a call, make a purchase, put us in the loop, and then we'll tell you if there's a hard stop. I mean, I get a lot of phone calls, it's like, this broke, it's 8 o'clock at night, we're at this lift station in Copper, this guy's gonna drive this up here from so-and-so, it's X amount of dollars. I might say, hold on, let me make a few calls, I'll call Mike, are you aware of this? Yes, I'm aware. Have you called so-and-so case? Have you called this vendor? It's over here, yeah, I've talked to all those guys, we're getting the best price. Okay, move. And so that happens, not very often, but at times. And so we want to make sure that our staff can still do that, but this is still some pretty compelling
So-
information.
How about the hand sanitizer, 50 gallons? Is that a good price or not?
I think we just looked at the picture, I got a lot of hand
Yeah.
sanitizer.
Well, I know
I
that-
actually got an offer to get it from, but I didn't get
Right,
it from.
well, there was on Amazon for a, you know, we like Cottonelle toilet paper, $65, and normally it's, I don't know, $20. So I don't know if that's facetious or not. Yeah.
I threw that on there because I thought it was.
I mean, 50 gallons, I don't know.
$1,750.
Yeah. I just, I want to say thank you for putting this together, because it's been very insightful for me, and maybe some of the others enjoyed it as well, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Mike's doing a great job.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
you all are, and thank you, Mike, because you are. Excuse me, do we have a name for this project?
The purchasing agent project.
The
Because
Mike
we
Crank.
could come up with, you know, an acronym that's
Yeah, we
catchy.
can come up with like,
Yeah.
give me a little.
PAI.
Come up with a good one.
Very good, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. It looks really good, all of you. Thank you.
Okay, this goes, employing the Wayback Machine. I think Jeff might have been at these meetings that took place about 15 years ago or so. There was a time when there was a kind of an effort among all of the agencies in the county
Yeah.
to brainstorm, you know, what could we do to work better together? And one of the items that came up from all of them, you know, if we could make our purchases as a bulk countywide purchase, we could all save a lot of money. So my question to you is, have you ever talked to Donna Leatherman or to say, you know, I'm preparing to order 200 of these valves. I know you use them too. Do you want to participate in this thing? We could save you some money.
I haven't yet, I know that it kind of got discussed, there is like a county collective or some kind of collective with agencies, but I just haven't had the time to
Well,
really dig
yeah.
into.
I'm not suggesting that this is something that you should have done already, but as your time frees up, I think
Yeah.
it's,
It's a great point.
It's on the radar, it's definitely not brought up to me, but I just, with everything flying by me, I haven't had a chance to.
It'd be a nice little goal. That's
I think
something we
that
talked
was-
about in the Highway 4 meeting, was Yeah. trying to put Right. something together. So that would be a
What-
nice
what-
goal down the road after it gets all organized.
I think it'd be a
Maybe.
good topic for the next utilities coordination committee.
Yeah.
Hey, just curious, we haven't really talked about chemical purchases. I think that was more about what Russ was talking about in the past when we were talking about, are you handling the chemical purchases as well?
No, 'cause we kept that, it's on the radar too, but we didn't want to interrupt the flow of the plants as far as me getting involved in that yet. But I do see the invoices, we do talk about it, but as far as these operators know what they need and know what they want, and I don't want to slow that process up, but. It's something
Well,
that we discuss.
what we may do over time is just ensure that it is a competitive process, and that they're each time that they go out and solicit, that they are at least making an effort to solicit more than one or their favorite vendor. Just,
You know,
that's a
At
simple.
At MSD, we did that for our chemicals, and we do it kind of on an annual basis, and that's probably what something like that would be, more of an annual basis type purchase.
Yeah, it's one of those things when we look at the claim summary, just like we all look at the claim summary, they come through and we call that operator, and it's, who'd you call?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those items that is there on the shelf that we need to pick up.
Well,
To
that
your
one,
point,
yeah, that one might be an easier one for you to get involved in, probably more than you think, you know, hyperchloride, whatever that, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, and you could probably save real big buying for
It's
all
in
your
discussion.
plants.
It's definitely,
Yeah.
it's on the radar, and
Okay.
we will eventually do it.
We have
I
one-
still got a lot to learn and a lot to improve on, there's no doubt.
Well, I wanted to thank both Dana and Michael. Thank you for putting this together. It's something I asked for just a couple of weeks ago, and this is very thorough, getting into labor saved and money saved. I really appreciate it. I'm surprised it's been a year. It doesn't seem like it's been a year. I really zipped
And
by.
excuse me, we had a public comment?
And if I could just make one quick comment as well.
Oh,
I just
okay.
want to recognize Mike for, you know, I think when we created this position, we didn't expect to hire internally. But to have somebody that has a background in industrial supply and who understands the district,
Great.
you know, he gave us a huge head start because he already knew our people and he already knew our infrastructure. And he showed up with his own ideas already on how we could improve efficiency and save money. And he's, I think, not only taken advantage of the opportunity, he's clearly passionate about it. He's just been great. So I just want to recognize Mike for a job well done.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, and, you had a comment? Do you have a question?
Yeah,
or
well,
do you-
no, just a quick comment.
Uh-huh.
My
Come to the mic.
35 years of salesmanship just got activated here. I mean, you know, heck, what do you want me to do for you? Just a couple things.
cheaper deal.
Yeah, just a couple things I was thinking of. An annual bid for pipeline materials. Your pipe valves and fittings, your service material. You get 2 or 3 suppliers, you go tour their warehouse. You see if they got, what their inventory looks like for those midnight calls for repair plans and so forth. Get to know the outside salesman, the inside salesman, and especially the warehouse manager. Get that warehouse manager's number.
Yeah.
You call him in the middle of the night, and he can send his guys down to deliver it to you.
Or we meet them halfway.
Right, exactly. And that low bid, get that salesman or one of his representatives, he comes and does your inventory of your boneyards.
Yeah.
Okay, and he keeps a list of your boneyards, so that way, if you get a call, you say, no, down in Cochran, we've got a 22.5 you can use, or something like that. And they will handle returns with 0 restocking charge, and have the salesman look at your junk. Excuse me, your extra material. Have the salesman look at your extra material, and, heck, they may take it back in their inventory. And at half the price, 50 cents on the dollar, whatever. Try a brush set power buy with other districts and share your boneyard list. You know, the power buy with the districts. Give a list of your guys' favorite contacts. You may find a common name all the way through there. You can answer a lot of your questions. Think of working with manufacturers directly. Some supply houses don't want to work with pumps or meters. Those are 2 outfits. You go direct to the manufacturer on your meters and pumps. And also think about district supplied material for your large projects. You get 2,000 feet of 12-inch ductile or 6-inch ductile, you can coattail a couple extra 1,000 feet for your yard. And the district supplied material would be your pipe valves and service material, and we can control your quality too. So, that's a couple things.
Thank you, that was good.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for paying attention during that.
He's enjoying the meetings, that's great.
Okay. Whew.
Bertha, did you see any extra of the 8-inch ductile iron pipe left over on Mazingo's job?
Oh, they're still there.
Still there? Well, did we buy
Yeah,
them?
there's yards
For
of,
each one?
Yeah.
12-inch, I think. I don't think I don't know if we kept extra. I mean, we probably bought it
Yeah,
if
so-
it was here, so.
So it's our material, so,
Yeah.
we have pallets of 22s and 45s on that job that are actually, are they going down to the Lot 10 warehouse? Or are they coming, we've got them in White Pines right now, I think we're gonna bring them over to this warehouse December 1. So I think there's 5 pallets of material.
But they kept the HDPE, right, the bypass?
Yes, they
Yeah.
kept the HDPE, and actually, as it was being dismantled, it was being put on a truck and it was sold to an entity, I think in Idaho.
But the 20-foot sticks of ductile iron, or they may be 24s, are those ours, or?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're gonna store them over at that warehouse?
Those will go to the barn, the White Pines barn when it's passed.
Okay.
and what about the dirt and all of that stuff?
I'm not sure what Mazinga's gonna do with the spoils from the project.
Because there's one area down from Forest Meadows,
Mhm.
remember they,
Yeah, I'm not sure where the SWIP, the stormwater protection plan, all the components were reviewed, I believe, as punch listed at the end of last week. And, so any decision about where all that extra earth is going to go would have been made then, but I'm not sure where that's going.
well, they better, because the rains are coming,
I
aren't they?
Are they?
know. Well,
Yeah, let's hope.
This year?
It's not looking great so far.
Let's hope.
Okay. Well, we're ready now for the general manager report, right?
Okay, just a few things. But first of all, first and foremost, I should say, is to introduce the board to our new external affairs manager, Jessica Self is here.
Jessica.
First day was Monday. And we've already have her hit the ground running. We have her working on a grant already and lots of other stuff getting up to speed. Very excited that she's here, and I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot from her considering her role. So wanted to introduce the board to Jessica.
Very good.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Excuse me, I introduced myself because I reminded her that, or I told her I was part of Applewood. I'm sure that you all used to go to Applewood up in Arnold, and that's where Jessica used to be. Yeah, running around with all the kids. Welcome.
So a couple of other items. We talked about at the last board meeting, the proposal to the Bureau of Reclamation for storage in New Maloney's. I have hard copies of those for each of the board members, and just wanted to give you the update that the proposal has been submitted to the Bureau, and we'll be following up with them to, we already received confirmation from them that their staff's reviewing it, and we'll be following up with them to meet and discuss that item. The recent PSPS event, I believe, is completely over for us now, but I think it's the third or fourth that we've experienced this year, affected just upcountry, basically, for the most part, east of 49. And it's still a strain on our staff to keep all the generators going and keep the refueling effort. It's definitely not as bad as when the whole district is dark, but staff did a great job of pumping down septic tanks in advance and filling up water tanks in advance and keeping everything going during the PSPS event. The troubling part about it, I would say, is, last year we had 4 PSPS events. I believe all 4 of them were in November. PG&E spent the last year telling us that they were investing in hardening the grid and installing additional disconnect switches, and that they were going to reduce the scope and frequency of these events. And here we are, it's not even November yet, and we've already had 4. So,
But the scope has been reduced dramatically.
You know-
For the smaller areas instead of just a swath, I think is what I've noticed. this
I
year.
think so, and I think we could also say anecdotally that that they've been shorter as well. They've been better about getting them back, getting the lights back on. But one of the questions I have, and this came up, and we're in a PSPS work group through Aqua. This was one of the questions I have that I think we need to be asking of the utilities and the regulators is, how do we know whether those events would have been larger or not, or would have been shorter or not? And as we go into November, we may still see county-wide outage events that last for 3 or 4 days, or maybe they're all going to be smaller and shorter. But where's the reporting requirement on their part to demonstrate that, yes, here's the investments that we made and it actually has paid off in terms of shorter events or less frequent events? I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get quality data on that or not, but that's definitely one of the things we need to be asking. In addition to, where's the additional resources for special districts? That's the grant we're working on this week. Is the state did make money available for local governments this year. Last year, as you recall, it was $75 million, but limited only to cities and counties. This year, it's a smaller pot of $50 million, but added special districts in so that we at least have a shot at it. So it's probably going to be very competitive.
Is it still shared with county and cities, though?
So I think my understanding, I think, is 20 million is available to special districts. I'd have to confirm that, but I think that's the case.
California?
Right. So that's a very small amount of money for the amount of impact that all districts are having. So we'll see if any of that is available, and then keep tracking that going forward. It was, I think, initially there was a push to get the legislature to increase that dollar amount, and that's when I went down and testified, was it earlier this year or late last year? Seems like a
Earlier this year.
lifetime ago. That was part of the ask, was to increase that overall dollar amount. The other important item I think that we need to continue to raise with on the policy level is the liability issue, that I don't want people to forget about, the shifting of liability that occurs from the utilities to the water districts in the event that we're not able to supply fire flow due to a PSPS event or a fire. That's something that needs to, this year, the legislative session, everything was eclipsed by COVID and the budget crisis. That needs to come back around. That needs to be addressed. It's really an unfair, untenable situation we're faced with on that front. So we will keep ringing those bells.
I have a question. We did issue a letter talking about water conservation. How did that, what was the impact? Did we see a reduction or?
Great question. I don't know if we had a noticeable reduction. That was an effort that we put together last year. We got all the different water agencies in the county to agree, because everybody on the water side wants to encourage conservation during these events. So that's why we decided to go with the NASCAR letterhead of all the agencies making that joint statement.
Yeah, so because of how we grade our meters, it's almost impossible to identify if conservation occurred over that period of time or didn't. I think once we get AMI, AMR, I think we'll have more capability at actually looking at real-time consumption use. We just don't have any way of doing that right now.
We can't just go back and look at our SCADA, our tank levels?
Production.
Well, so from a production standpoint, we have noticed that we had the initial PSPS, I think it was the very beginning of October, was initially scheduled to be pretty extensive. And so Rebecca and her department issued a conservation request.
Right.
Because we had real concerns about a tank in Rancho, a B tank, being able to handle a PSPS event during a heat wave. And we actually saw a noticeable change in a reduction in water use. We were able to gain ground on the tank. So from a production standpoint, yes, people are paying attention
Well, I mean, I'm really just kind of hoping that we're paying attention. That's really,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, at least we should know whether or not our tanks are in danger or anything, because, we may come to a point where we need to get out there and put signs up if we,
Yeah, there was a couple situations this year where we were watching that very closely, one in Arnold and one down in Valley Springs, where we were concerned about our ability for a tank to recover. And we were very close, at least one of those situations, we were very close to pushing out a much more urgent conservation message. The operations staff did a great job actually of reconfiguring. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what they did, but they did a great job of making sure that tank got filled up faster than what we had anticipated. So,
honestly, taking it farther, and maybe we should, try to accomplish this before next summer, but we might have, maybe a 3-tier process where the final tier is, we have to shut water off for fire flow.
yeah.
Or for some other safety scenario, or even if it's just a short term, or just, restrict water usage, unless of emergency or something. Maybe we have a 3-tier, the voluntary, the something a little more strict, and then the final, it's like, look, we're gonna run out of water if we don't, conserve better or
I think
stop
that's
it all.
that's something to look at. I think that's a good suggestion, sort of like rolling blackouts for
Because our
water.
goal should not be to ever have that tank go dry.
Right.
Or always have something in it, and we should have a level where we're uncomfortable and tell people we're out.
And I will say last year, sorry to cut you off there, Damon, just one other experience though we had, when that generator failed down in Copper, and we were very concerned
Oh, yeah.
about our water levels, and we pushed out, that was a much more urgent call for conservation specifically targeted at that community, and the community responded, that there was definitely a drop-off in consumption.
One of the things, I just wanted to highlight, one of the things that we talked about within ops, within the ops department is that included in the emergency action plan that we have for field staff is an automatic kind of switch, so to speak, that the operators automatically change all the set points associated with tanks when they receive this planned outage within the next 4 days. We change the start and stop set points of tanks, and we fill everything up to max capacity, and we tighten the start-stop levels to just make sure everything stays full, to address any issues like that.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So a lot of kudos due to the operations staff for their effort to be prepared for those events, and then how they handle those events. It's a really significant work effort, and I think the evidence of how successful they've been is the fact that for the most part our customers don't notice, and that is ideally that's what we're able to do. So, couple of the major construction projects, Reach 1 and Techite, are both pretty much done. We're serving customers through those new pipelines. There might be a few cleanup items left, but for the most part, I think we're pretty much wrapped up with both of those. So we will be working on a way to memorialize just to recognize the significance of both of those projects. Staff's working right now on finding a big enough pair of scissors, I believe, is the current concern for the ribbon cutting ceremony.
Call the chamber.
It's hard to do ribbon cutting ceremonies for stuff that's almost exclusively underground, we found, but we're going to find a way to do it.
And that's always been our problem, huh?
Let's see, and then, not that we have an opportunity to rest, obviously, we go right into other projects. And I just want to mention AMI, the meter replacement project is ramping up. We've had Mueller out here a few times now. They're out here today, working with staff on, up in West Point, I think, on the AMI portion of things. So that project is moving forward, and we're looking forward to it. I believe that's all I've got for now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
What can you tell us about that surplus auction.
What is the latest on that? Have we,
I believe, actually,
I believe everything is online, so we created an account with an online auction site called Public Surplus, and there's a lot of other public agencies that use it. The buyer ends up paying for they get like they have to pay a percentage on top of whatever they buy. Payments can be made via ACH to us. And then they have to pick up. And so Mike is able, our purchasing agent is actually handling the whole process. So he takes pictures of everything, puts them online, puts the prices on there for bidding on, pickup areas. So whoever ends up purchasing these, they know they want to come here. So we're able to get around the whole trying to send it down to a purchasing, auction site, because that ended up being cost prohibitive for us. So it's kind of a good deal. There's not a lot of people are doing public auctions very much that make them affordable. So I think that's why most public agencies just sit on it until it starts disintegrating in the ground. So so we're gonna try this out and we're gonna see if it works, and I'm positive about it.
Good.
When you say that it's online now,
Mhm.
so is there a drop dead date on submitting bids or what?
I'm not sure what the
Yeah.
timeline was legal on that.
so I think for all of the items that the district's putting on, it's a 2-week timeline.
2 weeks?
Yeah, and I think it's just an open bid period for 2 weeks, and then it just closes. It's not like, there's anything, it's not like it's an auction, like, we're gonna just ramp prices up now and we're gonna.
Kind of like an
end it
eBay
in
type
3
thing.
days, or end it in 5 days, it's just open for 2 weeks and then it ends. And then
And if it ends and nobody's bought it, can they just leave it up there and the first person who makes an offer, they get it?
Is there a minimum bid that if it's up there
all
for,
items, yes.
there's a $500, someone bids $1, I don't get it, right?
So, for all of the surplus items that were brought before the board, there was a estimated value. Those are the minimum.
Really?
Those are the minimums for.
What was it,
purchase.
public
So, it's
purchase?
a reserve.
Public surplus.
I don't like that idea.
of
If it's,
that being the.
I mean, if we want to get rid of it,
Yeah, well, I think maybe we'll revisit that after,
I would,
if they
listen,
don't
we,
sell.
Some of those prices though, I mean, were like.
well, you might, maybe there's a 2-tier deal, because, the bottom line is to get rid of this stuff, get it off, and, maybe you can hold it up to the second date and then take the reserve bid off, and then let anybody bid on for whatever it is. Because, I mean, the bottom line is to get rid of it.
Yep, that's
You
the
know,
goal, so if
I
those
mean,
prices are.
we end up with too much staff time involved in trying to get another $100 or $1,500 off something. It just, if it's surplus, we do a good due diligence. We just got to get rid of it.
Yep,
Does it
if
go
those are too
throughout?
high, we'll do that.
Does it go throughout California? I just kind of pulled it up to see, and there's just like Modesto or Stockton. So is it throughout California, or?
The country. So public surplus and public purchase are nationwide.
Okay. I'll look it up later.
But during that 2-week period of time, and you might have various people bidding on things, would the potential buyers be able to track and see how the bidding is going?
It's all online, yeah,
Okay.
so we should be able to see what's going on.
Good.
So it's the first time we've tried it, and we'll see, how our internal process goes, and then if we need to tweak something, we will. It's the same thing when we first started using public purchase, same thing, we know we have to adhere to our purchasing policy, but then in terms of the mechanics of making sure we get enough people actually bidding on RFP information that we put out there, we also have to kind of change some things that we're doing as well. So we'll try this out. It's the first time, we'll see how it works, and then if we have to internally augment things, then we will. But it's relatively simple to use,
Good.
pretty easy to get up, and pretty easy to
Great.
Any other questions for me?
Nope.
Were you going to report on the Region 3 program?
I hadn't planned on it, but I can. We did our webinar on biomass power.
Oh,
That's the
yeah,
flyer.
right.
A couple weeks ago. I have no idea how it turned out. We got some positive feedback, but I was on when you're behind the camera, it's hard to know how it came across.
Is that this one?
Yeah, I will say.
It turned out really good.
From my perspective, the fact that, we had 4 really knowledgeable and effective presenters. So I thought each one of their presentations were really informative. And as I've said to this board before, when it comes to biomass utilization and forest thinning projects, I think the greatest service I can do is get Steve Walensky out in front of as many people as possible for him to tell his story and the CHIPS story. It's incredibly compelling. So he did a great job. And we've had some follow-up discussions since then already on how we can continue to collaborate with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to it too. It was very good. What was surprising to me is that we kind of have our own little bubble around here that we're familiar with what's going on, but this forest management is really a hot topic throughout the state, and a lot of successes are being accomplished. So,
Yeah.
On that point, another point I will add. I think you're absolutely right. It's been increasingly important over the last few years. We've had some, through the mountain counties, we've had some involvement with urban agencies, even Southern California agencies that are interested in these efforts. And I've had some discussions recently with folks, even at agencies like Metropolitan, that are now looking at how they can partner on these projects, which I think is really encouraging. And the wildfires that we're seeing every year now, in particular this year, I think just raises the profile of these projects even more. I do anticipate, I don't know that we've confirmed it yet, but I think Region 3 will probably have a follow-up panel during the Aqua Conference that specifically gets at the very end of that panel. The question came up, I think I might have put this question to Dan Porter from the Nature Conservancy, of the barriers to, why is it so hard to develop these biomass power projects? And it's an incredibly complex question. It was probably totally unfair to put that to him at the very, with 2 minutes left. But I think that might become the topic of the panel we put together for the Aqua Conference.
And that would be good.
I have thoughts of that. I'll talk to you about it afterwards, but it really comes to prioritizing the subsidies and making them equal to, so try to make it the same subsidy as solar or wind. I mean, solar or wind do not pay for themselves without subsidies, and neither will biofuel.
Right, and it needs to be way higher than those is what we found. So that's how the CHIPS has been able to secure the financing finally for their project, is they got a power purchase agreement for $200 a megawatt. And that is
that's
way more, but that's what it takes for those projects to pencil. You can build a solar project on, depending on the project, but I don't know, maybe $25 a megawatt hour. But you can't, the fuel procurement, the technology, the construction cost for biomass is so much more expensive. It will not compete on its own. So it needs tariffs, it needs incentives in place that will create a market for those projects. And right now, the only one available that is at that $200 megawatt price is the biomat program, which is limited to projects that are 3 megawatts and smaller. And that's not going to do it. And even then, it's still incredibly difficult to develop those small projects. But we need to do that on a larger scale.
Okay.
thank you, Michael.
Cindy?
I've been attending those webinars as well. I've done the 2. And like Michael said, the forest management and the CHIPS program is amazing and very important, and we need it. The one this week, the San Joaquin Valley Water Forum, that was interesting, and I learned something new that I really enjoyed, which was the fish-friendly diversions, the way they were putting those together. See, what was her name? Or no, it was Scott did that presentation. I think that was my favorite one. So I'm looking forward to the other two and seeing what they have to offer. And then on IRWM last week, we only had the JPA meeting, which we just adopted the resolution to amend the planning, measurable planning targets. Otherwise, a really quick meeting.
I don't have anything to report, but I just wanted to know if anybody had any comments about that special districts webinar that they were having on the rate, developing rates and stuff.
I wasn't able to attend, but I'll check with staff and see if we had anybody that was able to make it.
Okay. All right, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I have nothing to report.
I just noticed on my calendar, there's a national election next week. I just want to make sure everyone gets registered and votes. Umra, are you going?
Yes, I will. I will be.
Okay, that's tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
It's Friday.
Okay, and I did listen to.
It's tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
I'll make sure you have that, yeah.
Well, like at 3:30, something like that?
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can't make it, let me know.
All right, I will.
Is Director Davidson taking place in that national election?
We hope so. Well, it's also a local election.
I'm on the same page.
I kind of wish he was.
And we did set up our legal affairs committee is meeting. We're going to do a virtual Washington D.C. Trip on Monday the 9th of November, and visit with the Washington D.C. delegates and with our lobbyists on that Monday. And welcome, Jessica. I look forward to working with you, and great to see you here. And I did listen to that forest management, your narration of those great speakers. I think you did a very, very good job, and that came across great. And I think I did talk to you afterwards, and yeah, if that had gone on another half hour, 40 minutes would have been better. There was
It ended up being rushed. I wish we had a little more time.
Yeah, not enough time for comments from the public, but just hearing those four people talk about what they had just reported on would have been fun.
The hope, the plan was they were each going to present for 12 minutes, and then we would have a lot of time for questions and for them to interact with each other. And some of the presentations went well beyond the 12 minutes, but it was hard to interrupt because the content was so good. So
I think he could tell Walensky 12 minutes and he'd do 24 minutes.
yeah, he was the one I was.
He's probably still talking about it.
Yeah. As advertised, but again, it was such great stuff that I wasn't about to interrupt them.
If anybody needs a mute button, it's that guy.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay.
On the contrary, I think he needs a megaphone.
Whatever.
You mentioned something about a Washington trip?
No.
Virtual webinar.
Are we going to do a simulated red eye the night before just to make it
We gotta look
realistic?
real tired and hungover. I think.
Yeah.
So you won't need my metro tickets either, I guess?
I'd like to have them in my pocket just in case.
Okay.
Okay, because Mia mentioned something about a Washington trip, and so I was wondering if that was.
That's it.
It's virtual.
The trip is in quotes.
Yeah, no airline tickets involved.
Oh, okay. I hope all of you
Expensive
saw
hotel.
in the Auckland News the reference to Calaveras County by our executive director by the name of Dave Egerton. Did we all see that
So,
in here? Okay, and I thought this was very interesting. I get this one publication, and I'd like to give this to Jessica because it's a thing on marketing to seniors, because we do have, an elderly population up here, and when we issue our letters or whatever we're saying, we want to make sure that we're grabbing them, because they've got to pay attention to what we're saying, because we have some important stuff, and so I'd like to hand this to you. I think that would be something. Okay, future agenda items. Nothing? We'll leave it up to you, Michael.
We will deliver.
Okay, next board meeting, we have Wednesday, November 11th, but we have Wednesday, November 25th. We just canceled that under consent agenda. Oh, okay, all right, okay, so. Okay, now we'll go into closed session, conference with legal counsel, potential litigation, government code 54956.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay, thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And we'll be here for that, is that in here?
Here, Michael?
Yeah, we'll stay in here.
Oh, good.
Bertha, can we take a